Welcome to Barrier Breakers, a podcast celebrating resilience and triumph over adversities. Expect raw, honest conversations filled with practical advice and life lessons. Now on to today's episode. Welcome back to episode 15 of Barrier Breakers.
15.
We've come a long way, friend.
15.
I know. Before the camera started rolling, we were trying to remember what episode number we were on, just because this has been a wild and exciting ride.
Yep.
Already.
Very much so.
Today, we have the honor of sitting with another local barrier breaker, straight out of Knoxville, Tennessee, Miss Bri.
Hey.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us today, Bri.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. And just like all of our other guests here, we don't have any premeditated
No
questions.
preconceived notions. We just
nothing
want
like
to
that.
know your story.
Yes.
What makes you you?
Perfect.
So take us back from the beginning. Tell us about your childhood, Bri.
Okay, so before I was even born, what I think is cool is I'm a first generation on my mom's side to be born in the United States. So she was born in Angola, Africa, and that's where my family is from. And then when she was a teenager, she moved to California. And then as she grew up in her 20s, she met my dad. And then not short after that, they had me. And then they moved to Sacramento, California, which is where I grew up, like a suburb outside of that. And then 4 to 5 years after that, my sister was born. And my parents got divorced at an early age. My dad, he was an alcoholic and bipolar. And so I was really young, but I still had a lot of memories of things that my dads would do. And I try to shield my sister from that because she was a lot younger than me.
Sure.
But in the end, I didn't mind my parents being divorced because I would rather have my parents be apart and not fight than be together and be fighting. And then as time went on, I got a bonus dad. I got a stepdad that's been in my life for a while. And my dad struggled with being an alcoholic and his mental health issues for a while. And it wasn't until I was in college and my friend's dad suddenly passed away, and it made me reevaluate my relationship with my dad and made me want to fix things with him. And so, yeah, I started on that journey and just kind of like forgiveness and things like that. And now being more of an adult, I still dealt with some challenges with that, but he's doing good now. But that's a little bit about my childhood and where I'm from and everything.
I love that you're working on forgiveness. How old were you when you finally reached back out to him?
Well, my mom and dad had like a certain custody split. So when I was younger, I still went to his house a couple days a week or every other weekend. But I just really hated my time with him, or like we would get into arguments or I would start arguments. I should have definitely been in counseling when I was younger.
Yeah.
But when I was in college, that's when I was like, okay, maybe I should stop picking fights with him. Or whenever he reached out to me to talk with me, maybe I shouldn't like ghost him or just do superficial conversations. And so, yeah, it was then when I decided to like actually want to spend quality time and not hate being there with him type of thing. Yeah.
How receptive was he to you guys wanting to have a closer bond?
Good. Like he wanted like a close relationship with me, but I know that he was aware of his struggles. And he knows that he can't take back what he's done. And so, yeah, he always would reach out and put in effort and say, hi, how are you? Let's get together type of thing. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So now you're an adult. You're working on mending things with your father. Tell us about your other personal relationships.
Yeah, so I came to Tennessee in, what was that, June of 2020? It's so crazy to think
the COVID years.
Yeah. Well, I came to Nashville with a friend in January of 2020, had never been to the South before. And I was just amazed, as everyone else that comes to Nashville. Southern hospitality is real. People were so nice. I was amazed that there was green trees in January still, because in California, everything is just like dead all the time.
Yeah.
And so I was 25 at the time, and I was like, I think I'm going through a quarter life century crisis. I need to move my life across the country.
Yeah.
And so I was in a relationship for a few years and told him, like, I think I'm moving to Nashville. And he was like, well, I don't really want to leave Sacramento. And I was like, all right, well, I think this is the end of our journey type of thing. But in the midst of that, I was looking for housing on Facebook, and I came across another guy that was kind of like hitting on me in the housing groups. And I started a relationship with him. And when I moved to Tennessee and we pursued our relationship further, things escalated pretty quickly, and I found myself in a abusive relationship. So that was the first time that I really dealt with that situation. Yeah.
So, do you mind telling us a little bit more about that? Was there any, looking back, any warning signs about this person?
Yeah, well, now like reflecting back on it, just even looking at little things when I was still in California and he was in Tennessee, like I would be FaceTiming him and I would be wearing a certain outfit and he would comment on what I'm wearing and say it's like slutty or I shouldn't be wearing that. And he was already trying to control what I wear.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even living like in the same state as him. We weren't in like a very serious relationship yet. And then when I moved to Tennessee, we weren't living together yet. I was living with roommates, but he started controlling me in ways like I wasn't allowed to go to the gym by myself. So he joined the same gym as me. I wasn't allowed to go out with my friends on my own, and he would just bring himself along for the ride without me inviting him. So it really started with control and
Sure.
manipulation
Mm-hmm.
before it turned into like verbal abuse and physical abuse. So yeah, I definitely like progressed and got worse over time.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Did that happen when you moved in?
So looking back, we moved in together, I think it was in the summer of 2021, but it kind of started before we moved in, the verbal and physical abuse, and I would hide it from my roommates and they didn't really see. They started to pick up on things towards the end of it. Like we would be out together and he would do things like pinch me on my back.
Yeah.
Like if guys would come up to me and say I'm pretty, or if I like someone just started a conversation with me, like he wouldn't be verbal with me and out loud or assault me in front of people, but he would do little things like pinch me and stuff so he could still have that control over me when other people weren't noticing. But yeah, so it was crazy.
Yeah, and I hate that you went through that. I know Gentry has his own history of domestic violence as well. So, you're not alone in that. And I know some of our listeners out there as well can relate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you make a decision to kind of end things? What was a catalyst for you walking away from that relationship?
It took a while, honestly, and it got really, really, really bad before I decided to walk away. It was, when was that? October of 2021. There was an incident where he had punched me in the face really hard, and I was gushing blood everywhere. And all the other physical abuse that I endured before, I kind of just took it. Like I would get bruises on me. He would hit me in the same spot right here on the left side of my face. And I was able to cover up those bruises with makeup.
Yeah.
But to have like blood gushing out, like I was actually really concerned. And so it was the first time I called the police and asked for help. And little did I know at the time, he was calling the police too on the other end and making his own report. But the police came and I was covered in blood, and they took my statements, asked me what happened and things like that. They took him out front, was asking him questions, and things were unfolding how I not expected it.
Yeah.
The officers then came together and started talking, and then they came to me and were like, so your boyfriend tells us that you have lip filler. Could that be a reason why your lip is swollen? And I was like, I was just like so in shock. Like I
Oh my
still had blood all
gosh.
over
Yeah,
my
but
face.
yeah.
And I was like, no, like he punched me in the face. And he was like, well, and didn't you have a septum nose ring? Couldn't that be the reason why you have a bloody nose and there's blood gushing out? And I'm like, yeah, he did rip out my nose ring and I had a
Oof.
septum piercing,
Yeah.
but like he hit me and you could see like a bulge forming on the side of my face.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could tell when someone knocks you out, it's a bulge, you get a fat lip and everything. And they were just questioning me about my appearance, and I was just in disbelief that they didn't believe me.
It's infuriating.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen pictures that I've posted on my social media, but I can show you guys after. But I was clearly hit. Like
yeah.
it wasn't mistakenly like with lip filler or anything like that.
We'll be sure to share those when we highlight your story for sure.
Yeah, but then before I knew it, the police arrested me and not my boyfriend. And they arrested me for aggravated assault strangulation, which is a felony. And I don't think he had anything on him except like a couple scratches.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they arrested me and they let him go. And little to my knowledge at the time when I was arrested, I was being charged also with another crime for back in July.
Mm-hmm.
So backing up in time, there was an incident where I was out with my friends and my ex found me and took me, and he was intoxicated, took me in his truck, drove me back to the house and started hitting me. And I jumped out and got away and hid in a parking garage. And little did I know at the time, he called the police and he made a report on me. And I guess I had a warrant out for my arrest. And I was being charged with another felony, aggravated assault for strangulation, because he had a couple of scratches on his neck that time. And so it's crazy because I worked for the state, for the Department of Children's Services, and I run background checks on people all the time. They run background checks on workers all the time.
Sure.
And he had mentioned something to me like, oh, remember that incident in July? Like, oh, I was worried about you. And just to let you know, there might be a warrant out for your arrest. And I thought it was like a tactic to scare me because he would do that often. And I had looked myself up and nothing had popped up. So I truly didn't believe him. And I don't know if I truly did have a warrant out for my arrest, because typically when warrants are out for your arrest, they come looking for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they knew where I lived.
Yeah.
They knew the car I drove. They knew my license plate. They had my phone number because he gave them all that information, which I found out through my attorney later, and they never came to look for me. So I don't know if I really had a warrant out for my arrest or if the police just added that on as a little cherry on top when I got arrested in October, just a few months later.
Yeah. So he was just beating you to the punch the entire time because he had already put up, a story out there, a narrative. So it's therefore, easier for them to believe the first person to speak, whereas you're really the victim in all of this.
Yeah. And so I'm in the back of the cop car, just like in disbelief. I feel like I'm in a movie or something. It was the first time I called the police for help, and I'm the one being arrested. Yeah. And my ex would always say, like, no one's going to believe you, blah, blah, blah. And I started really believing that, because how are the police going to look at me covered in blood with my injuries and then arrest me and not him? And when I tell this story, like, trolls comment online and they're like, you must be lying. Like, he must have had marks on him. And I'm like, no, like, this is the truth. This is how messed up it is. And so I remember being in the back of the cop car, and I started screaming and kicking in the car, and the cop was like, "You might want to stop or else I could charge you again." And I'm like, "Okay, this is crazy." And I remember walking into jail, handcuffs behind my back, and doors open, cameras are on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cameras are on me in jail, which I've seen TV shows like 60 Days In. Have you guys seen that show?
Mm-hmm.
So what are the odds that this TV show is filming in the Nashville jail while I'm getting arrested?
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm doing my fingerprinting and everything, they're filming me going through that. And throughout time, my injuries on my face are getting like more
apparent.
Yeah, more apparent. I had the bulge on the side of my face. My lip is getting more swollen. My black eyes forming. I still had blood in my hair, blood in my nostrils, all of that. And they're filming me. And then all of a sudden I sit down and I'm in jail, just my head's hurting, which I found out later I had a concussion. So they're doing checks on me every hour. But I'm just so like sitting there distraught. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Yeah, so we heard you're in here for domestic violence, but it looks like there's more to the story. Can you just sign these papers? We would love to share your story on our
National
TV show."
Yeah.
And I'm like, get the F away from me.
Oh my gosh.
Like, get away
Vultures.
from me.
Yeah.
I can't.
Like, it was
I'm
just
having
like,
trouble processing.
yeah, it was like one crazy thing after another, honestly.
Were you already pretty influential online at this point?
Like, no, I had like 8,000 followers. I wasn't anything special. I had, I was a blogger in Nashville. But what's crazy about that, further into the story, I get out of jail, and the only person I knew to bail me out was my ex, because all my family lives in California, and there's a law in Tennessee where out-of-state people can't bail you out of jail.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I had to pay my full bail to get out. And when my ex picked me up, he looked at me and was like, "This is your fault." Like, couldn't even say sorry or anything. And he was out all night on Broadway the night before. He dropped me off at the house and he went to the Titans game. And I was sitting at home crying, and my face was so beat up. It was the first time I looked in the mirror because, in jail they don't have mirrors. I only could see my reflection a little bit in the two-way mirrors that they had. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital. Like, something's wrong with my face. And little did I know at the time, he broke my occipital bone in 2 parts. So I was sitting in jail with a concussion and a broken face. And so, yeah, I went to the emergency room, got looked at, and I had 2 felonies.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to need an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is crazy. So on top of paying bail, I had to pay for an attorney, and my ex was just out drinking. And I just knew that something was wrong. Like, the police should have never arrested me.
Yeah.
They should have, if they couldn't come to a conclusion, at least arrest both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And so I had actually gone to the police station, and I wanted to meet with the lieutenant. And the lieutenant took my information. I was in there with my beat up face, and he was like, "Okay, we'll get back to you." He never got back to me.
Sure.
Wow.
Like, of course. And I walked out of the police station, and I had opened up Instagram, and I got a DM notification from Scoop Nashville, which, for people that aren't familiar, it's a Instagram page where they post mugshots of people.
Yes.
And they had like 60,000 followers at the time. I don't know how many they have now because I blocked them. But they were like, "We're going to post your mugshot online. Do you have anything to say about what happened?" And I was like again, like, everything's unfolding so crazy.
Yes.
And I was like, "Please do not post this. I'm in a very serious domestic violence relationship. I'm trying to get out. I have an attorney. Like, please do not post this." And he was like, "What's your attorney's name?" And I had told him. And he screenshotted my messages. blurred out my picture and my username and posted it on Instagram and was like, guess what? Nashville blogger, DCS worker got arrested for domestic violence. And who's going to tell her that having an attorney is not going to stop us from posting her mugshot? Save the date, posting in 2 days. And they made a countdown. And everyone hopped on the story.
Wow.
And was like commenting, like laughing and all this stuff. And then I was just waiting. Like I knew this was going to be posted. And like I had told some of my friends finally about what was going on. And my family was like aware of things going on, but I don't think to the severity of what was going on because I was hiding it. I was embarrassed. I don't know. I just really didn't know how to handle it, which is kind of crazy because being a DCS worker, I helped women all the time that were in abusive relationships and I had all the resources, but actually being in it, I fully understand now why it's so hard to leave. But yeah, 2 days go by and my mugshot gets posted and it goes viral, like one of the most viral posts they've ever had. And people are just commenting like, abuser, she must be a child abuser, and started tagging DCS in the post because that's where I worked.
Yeah.
Did you give your employer a heads up about this at all?
Yeah, I had told my manager like everything that was going on, so they were aware. And my ex, we still lived at the time, and he was just like laughing, was like, I told you you were the problem. And like I started going a little crazy, like, am I the problem? Like, why is no one believing me? And in my mugshot, which you guys can like post and use, like I said, I have dry blood in my hair. I have dry blood in my nose. I have a black eye forming and a like busted lip. Like, and people are looking at that, just shaming me and not questioning like, oh, could there be another situation going on?
You're the one with a broken nose and a concussion.
Yeah.
And yet you're the abuser when he only had a few scratches.
Yeah. And so all of that is unfolding. So now everyone in Nashville is finding out everything. And I was put on investigation for my job because, everyone was tagging DCS.
Sure.
And I actually ended up being fired from my job because of everything going on. So I had 2 felonies, no job. I wasn't going to be able to get a new job with 2 felonies on my record. And I was still living at home with this abusive person. And I didn't know how to leave because he was like threatening me and like threatening to kill my animals. And like, it was just crazy. And I didn't know what to do. And I had an attorney and we were like trying to come up with a plan. And I tried to get counseling services through the Family Safety Center to get like specialized domestic
Sure.
violence counseling. And because on paper, like I was the assaulter, I didn't qualify for services. And I remember sitting in the lobby and they were denying me. And a lady walked by and was like, I'm going to figure out how to help you because I see the injuries on your face and there's something going on. So she ended up somehow qualifying me and giving me counseling. And we try to come up with a plan on how I should leave and everything like that. But it got crazier because then the Daily Mail picked up on the story.
I know about the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like the Kardashians are on there. And
Yeah.
I'm just a blogger with like
Nashville.
8,000 followers. Like I'm literally no one special.
Oh.
And so I wake up one morning and I have tons of text messages. And I open it and people are like, have you been on Snapchat? And I was like, no, I don't have Snapchat. Like, what's on there? And they're like, you're in the Daily Mail. Like, the Daily Mail featured stories. And I'm like, what the F? And people were sending me screenshots of the story. And it's like, oh God, what did it say? It's like my picture, my ex's picture. And it's like, national blogger turned assaultant or like DCS worker. Like they kept using national blogger,
Yeah.
DCS worker, boyfriend abuser, and all this. And so not only did people in Nashville know, now people in California where I'm from know. My extended family's finding out. My ex's family's finding out. The whole world is finding out because the Daily Mail is not just in the United States, it's in
Sure.
Europe. And I was getting a ton of messages online from people. Of course, trolls coming at me, like calling me a boyfriend beater and all this stuff. But then I did have a lot of love from people too that knew me, and they're like,
Sure.
something is wrong with this
Mhm.
situation. And yeah, it was crazy. And it took me a while to leave because going back to my childhood and the whole forgiveness thing of like
Yeah.
what my dad did to me, like he never abused me and did stuff like that, but he would yell or put me and my sister in unsafe situations
Mhm.
and then apologize and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it, or I wasn't yelling, I just raised my voice.
Yeah.
And to be in that pattern of something doing something harmful to you and then saying sorry, forgiving them, and then the pattern repeats. Like I was doing that in this relationship
Mhm.
unknowingly. And being a mental health worker and being in this profession, I feel like I can fix people and I
Yes.
see like positives in a lot of people. And I really thought that my ex loved me and there
Mhm.
was something wrong with him that he could fix. But that wasn't the case,
Yeah.
type of thing. And so, yeah, that happened in October of 2021. And despite the charges, despite being arrested, despite the hate online, I stayed with him. And it wasn't until December of that year where I was so numb. I didn't have any emotions or really like anything to live for, it felt like.
Yeah.
And so on Christmas, I attempted suicide and I tried to hang myself.
Mm.
And my ex walked in and found me, and he actually saved me, which is kind of weird to think about. Looking back at it now, I think he wanted to save me to keep using me as his little punching bag type of thing. And then a few days after that, New Year's Eve, like we were all out, still me trying to be with him. And he was really intoxicated. And he told me that I should have just killed myself and he should have just let me hanging there. And in that moment when he said that, like it finally clicked in my brain to leave.
Mhm.
Like I didn't care what he was going to do. He would threaten me about posting like my naked pictures online.
Yeah.
He threatened to kill my cats. He threatened to call the police and tell them that I was hitting him
Mhm.
because I was out on bond. If he called the police and told them that I hit him, then I would automatically be taken to jail because that's a violation of my bond.
Sure.
So he used that a lot. And I just didn't care anymore. I was just like, go ahead, call the police. I'll go to jail. Like anything I can do to get away from you,
Mhm.
like that's what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, I finally mustered up the courage to leave. And I came up with a plan with my counselor. And I somehow got him out of my house. I was like, you need to leave this house by this date, or I'm going to the court and I'm filing something against you. And I think he saw for the first time that I was really serious and I wasn't going to like back down to his tactics.
Yeah.
That he was just like, okay, I'll leave. But he thought that maybe by leaving that he could still have some like control and manipulation over me, where he moved out the beginning of February. So now we're going into 2022.
Mhm.
And when he was moving out, he like forced me to move him out. And he was just calling me horrible things. He took like the Wi-Fi cable modem, like the cord, and was like choking me with it, and just horrible. And I was just like, whatever, just leave. And also, we made a deal that if I didn't go to the police about him and make charges on him, he would give me half the money for bail and for my attorney. And I was like, whatever, anything I could do to have money, because I didn't have a job or
Yeah.
anything. And my family in California said that they would help me like pay rent and whatever I needed. But to get money from him, I was like, sure, I will take that. He had all of this money and he spit in it and he threw it at me. And that was like the last thing that he did to me. And I just like collected my dollars and like said sayonara. And I was so happy. I was like so ready to start a new chapter in my life. And then as soon as I left his apartment, he started texting me and was like, I love you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Like maybe us living apart now would be good and I can be better. And then like a few hours after that, the text started changing, calling me horrible, horrible names.
Sure.
Threatening that he was going to break into the back door of my house and the back door is always open, or like all these threats. And a couple days after that, so that was Friday, moving to Sunday morning, I was sleeping and he broke into my house and tried to kill me. And so I'm actually still in a current court case for that, so I can't go into too much detail. But he was charged with 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, one of them being aggravated assault, strangulation, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And I almost lost my life that day. So not only did I try and take my own life, like a couple months prior to that, he tried to come back and finally like take my life in his hands.
Yeah.
Because if he couldn't have me, then no one else could have me. And so, yeah, crazy to think that that's 2 years ago now, and I'm still dealing with this court situation. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I know that was a lot.
Oh my gosh. It just kept going. I mean,
like, yeah, it was like never ending.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're happy that you're still here, to say the
Absolutely.
least. Goodness. So that was in Nashville. What made you decide to move east?
So I had met my current boyfriend. Sounds so crazy. I was a relationship hopper at the time. I think, having like security, being with someone was like also another issue that I needed to work on, which I didn't know about at the time. So I was in one relationship in California, immediately hopped into another relationship. And then soon after that, I hopped into a new relationship with my boyfriend I'm with now. We should have never dated as soon as we did so I could work through my mental health issues, but everything happens for a reason and
It
we're
does.
doing really good now.
That's good.
And he's so sweet and really supportive of everything, but he got a job offer out here in East Tennessee. So that's why we moved out here, and he actually got laid off 2 days ago. So that's the current issue we're dealing
Gosh,
with.
I saw you post about that, and I was like,
Yeah.
goodness,
Yeah.
how do you, with all this chaos and hurt and pain, just keep your head above water?
What's your anchor?
Yes.
Honestly, after my ex tried to kill me, I thought leaving him, like, I would finally be okay. But little did I know, like, the year and a half that we were together, how much damage he caused to me
Sure.
mentally.
Yeah.
That I didn't even know who I was anymore, because he completely stripped me of who I was, because he controlled what I wore, who I hung out with, what I did, and like just shamed me of my body and like who I was. So I was just an empty shell. And I like was out a lot, drinking a lot too, not taking care of myself. And I'm lucky for my boyfriend at the time being there for me, but like I didn't really treat him that well either, because I would accuse him of things that he wasn't doing because like my ex did that to me.
Yeah.
So patterns and projection.
Yeah. And I was still in counseling. I still had my 2 felonies that I had to deal with, but because he tried to kill me, the court finally realized that, oh, maybe she's not the problem. So in April of 2022, I got my felonies dropped, expunged off my record.
Wonderful.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, not on there. And I stopped counseling, and I was like, okay, now that the felonies are off my record, I found a job, I'm with a new boyfriend, like I'm good. But I wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly wasn't until last year, like the beginning of January 2023, I worked out and I put on a podcast. I was listening to different
Mm-hmm.
life podcasts, positivity podcasts, and a therapist had said, stop viewing your trauma as a negative thing and view it as a positive thing, because you were chosen to go through something so bad to bring awareness and to help people going through the exact same thing. And that just clicked in my brain, like a different way of thinking.
Resonation.
Yeah. And because I am in the mental health field and I do have really great skills and education to help people, now that I truly have the lived experience of being a domestic violence survivor, a suicide survivor, having depression, anxiety, PTSD, being a felon, going to jail, having to go to court. Like I had all these things I had gone through, and I can now help so many people in different avenues with the same thing. So really just changing my mindset to be more positive,
Yeah.
because I was just so negative all the time. And I remember it, like I remembered questioning God, like, why did I go through this? Like,
Mhm.
why did I deserve to go through this? Like, I'm a good person. I've never done anything bad in life to deserve this. And I honestly stopped believing in God and like
Yeah.
had lost my faith. And listening to all these podcasts and changing my mindset, it made me like reflect on the day that he tried killing me. And like in the moment where he could have ended my life in a split second with like the weapon that he had,
Mhm.
like it made me realize that it wasn't him that stopped. It was
No, you're fine.
You're good.
like my angels around me.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, you live a lot of life in a year and a half, Bri,
Sure. Such a short amount of time.
and that is, it's nothing but God. If you were to ask me,
Yeah.
all three of us have been through a lot of life in our in our 30s. To think that we're all in our 30s. Well, are you in your 30s?
I'm 29. I
Oh,
turned 30
almost
this
there.
year.
Woo-hoo!
All right.
Welcome.
Yay.
But it's just like, we've all been through stuff, and
Goodness.
we all have gotten to the point where you ask why. I did it once in my own battle. I don't even like using that word, but can't think of anything else right now. And yet Gentry and I talk about it a lot. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me, and help me to understand the why behind it. This podcast came together because of Gentry and I having stories that we knew would resonate with other people.
Yeah. And even though I did feel weak in really big moments, like when I attempted suicide and everything, like maybe I was chosen because I truly am strong, because now on the other side, I've overcome it. I mean, I'm still trying to deal with it every day. I still have a current court case going on, but like also because I am in social media and I have a platform, and because of the work that I do also besides social media, that I can truly help people. So like it really made me realize that I am strong enough to get through what I've gone through to help other people.
Yeah. Are you back working with the state now?
No.
No.
I'm not allowed to work for DCS ever again, which
Okay.
like is really sad because like I was one of the best workers. I did everything for my families and my kids. I worked multiple counties because there was like a high turnover rate
Mhm.
and I was willing to drive to other counties to help kids. I worked 24-hour shifts, driving kids to different foster homes across the state, stayed up all night with them in hospitals when they were on like a 5150 hold. And like that hurt. That really hurt
Sure.
Yeah.
to be let go by them. And when I was in my investigation, they questioned me about having a secondary income because I guess that wasn't allowed. And I was doing social media and just random things. And when I got
Mhm.
my packet when I was fired, like they had mentioned that, but in detail, it was because of the Scoop Nashville article and the bad press that it brought for DCS. So the fact that they just let me go without helping me was really, really hurtful.
Sure.
Yeah.
And come to find out, one of the judges that I worked for, because I would go to court for my families and testify, he was talking crap about me in front of some of my families too.
Mhm.
And had mentioned out loud, like, oh, have you heard about Breezy getting arrested and stuff like that? Like, I just thought that was so inappropriate and like that infuriates me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even want to work for the state again because of all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I work for a nonprofit in town, so I'm still like doing work helping families and kids, and my work now knows everything that I've gone through and they're super supportive of me. They know that I'm still in a current court situation. I have, a thing up so my ex can't come and
Mhm.
try and find me. Order of protection, that's
Yeah.
what
Sure.
it's called. So they know about that, and yeah, they're really supportive of everything going on. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I had a social worker growing up too, and she was the most influential person in my life at the time. I mean, we're Facebook friends now, and just when we reconnected a few years ago, she reached out and was just so proud. And I had to
Yeah.
tell her like the sorority I pledged was because of her. Just her being there at a very hard time was just a godsend. So I applaud you for that work because I
Yeah.
know it's not easy at all.
Thank you. Yeah, I really did like it. They definitely need to pay like DCS workers more
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like value time off and things like that because
Mhm.
I was working nonstop. But I mean, I would do it again just to help families and kids. So,
My parents, when I grew up, they were respite care providers.
oh,
So we were on the other end.
yeah.
We were on the other end. Like people were dropping them off at our houses.
Mhm.
So to hear the other side is you just don't know what you don't know, right?
No, you never do until you stop to ask questions and seek to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, I just hope that I can find closure with this court case, but I'm not going to stop fighting until he gets what he deserves.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is, I finally felt comfortable to share my side of the story.
Yes. When did you first start sharing your side?
It was a year after that incident.
Okay.
So the big incident where I was arrested, so that was October of 2021. I posted pictures October, the same date in 2022. So exactly a year later, I posted the pictures of what happened that day. And I just didn't care like how graphic it was. I was like, I'm ready to finally share my side of the story. And, that went viral, which I guess is good because me went viral before with all the bad press and everything. And my post got picked up. And so I've been on a couple podcasts and was interviewed by like scene survivors. I was like on Survivor Squad podcasts and stuff like that to share my story. And because I've shared that on social media, I've had so many people reach out to me, women and a couple of men too, telling me that they were in domestic violence situations and like, thank you for sharing my story. I had people who have never told someone before and they were confiding in me, asking me for resources and stuff. So I immediately knew that that's exactly why I went through all of this, and me posting my story online is helping other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a very powerful platform.
Thank you. And a couple women actually came forward to me that they were with my ex after me.
Wow.
And they experience abuse too. Not to like the level that I went through,
Yeah.
but very bad, like verbal abuse, manipulation, some physical abuse. And one girl even called the police on him. And he had, like, he still has the charges from what he did to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was scared and didn't want to pursue charges. And they just let him go, knowing that he had those charges. It wasn't a violation of his bond because she didn't want to press charges, and the police didn't go ahead and just file charges anyways. So he still thinks that he can get away. And I actually got a message like a week ago, and someone was telling me that he still talks about me very openly to people. It was like, yeah, I have a influencer girlfriend who's crazy and makes up all these lies about me. So he's very like narcissistic and thinks that he did nothing wrong
Yeah.
and that nothing's gonna happen to him. So
That's how narcissists think,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Well, we will be, of course, just following along to see the culmination
Yeah.
of your trial. I know we can't talk too much about it, but we will be watching and be sure to update our listeners out there.
Yeah, definitely.
What, before we wrap this up, if you were to say anything to someone that's, walking the same journey that you are and they're not coming forward with it, what would you tell them just to give them some hope and courage?
Courage. Yeah.
I would definitely recommend seeking domestic violence counseling because meeting with my counselor really helped me like come up with a plan and like come to an understanding of what was happening to me. She gave me this paper and it was like a power control wheel and it showed like a diagram of how someone can be manipulated over time. And no matter where you live, no matter what state or county, there's always free resources that you can utilize for domestic violence counseling, and you can get free counseling that way. I would just say that you're not the problem and that you can get through it, and just to not give up fighting because it's so much better on the other side of things once you're out of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, Bri.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, whenever I get a chance to share my story on different platforms, I know it's at least going to help one other person.
Mhm.
And it just, fuels my fire to even keep going every day because I do still struggle every day. I still have PTSD,
Sure.
anxiety, depression, my court case that I'm dealing with. So I really appreciate you guys having me today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you're welcome. And I will say too, because I was thinking this the entire time you were talking, people will assume otherwise because you're sitting here so well put together and the way that you can talk about what you've gone through now. They will assume whatever they want to assume, but just keep doing you and keep fighting because you are seen and you're making a major difference in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a struggle. Like
I
I might
know.
seem put together
I
right
know.
now, but I gotta look good on camera, even though I cried a little bit. But no, I mean, like I said, it's a lifelong battle. There's
Mhm.
days where I wake up screaming in my sleep, and my boyfriend will wake me up because I'm having like flashes to my ex breaking into my house. I have anxiety all the time. Like I'm seeing a doctor for like memory issues, possible like brain damage that I have. So, like I said, you don't want to be sad all the time,
Yeah.
it's life. You got to keep going. And so, like I said, just trying to keep a positive mindset.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
Before we wrap up, we want to end this by giving praise, a shout out, sharing some love to someone special in our lives. Bri, who would you like to say thank you to or send a special note to?
I'll send a special note to my boyfriend,
Aw.
Jarrett. Even though he might not understand everything that I've went through, he has stuck with me through the good and the bad. And he allows me to cry when I feel like crying. He gives me hugs when I don't have words to say. And yeah, he's awesome. And I appreciate him.
I love that. Thank you, Jarrett, for being a great dude.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to say I love you to my baby sister. She made a pretty big decision this last week that's going to have such a positive impact on someone that we both mutually love. So to my baby sister, Boogie, as we call her, thank you and I love you.
Oh, I just want to say, I guess I love you too, my Aunt Glo. She's my great aunt, but she helped me at a time when I really needed it. And she doesn't, I mean, she will never know the extent of how much she helped me, but she did. She helped me at a time when I stopped believing in myself. And she was just, didn't take that. Like, she's like, yeah, I know that that's how you say that you feel, but that's not how you really feel.
Yeah.
And but no, I'm alive today because of her. So.
I love that. Thank you again, Bri.
Thank you.
You're
This
welcome.
was so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you again soon.
Until next time.